Have you ever been publicly humiliated by the company you devoted years of your life to? Imagine being the mastermind behind your company's biggest success of the year, only to be thrown out of the awards ceremony right in front of all your colleagues, including the thief who stole your work. And with just one email, you flip everything upside down, bringing the most powerful people there to their knees. This is my story. My name is Samantha Whitmore, though everyone calls me Sam. I was 32, creative director at Brightsphere Global, and about to experience the most humiliating moment of my professional life. The grand ballroom at the Westford Ritz sparkled with champagne flutes and fake smiles. Our annual awards ceremony was in full swing, the night where Brightsphere pretended to care about its employees while the executives patted themselves on the back. I'd attended 5 of these circus acts before, but tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight, I was supposed to win. The Phoenix campaign, my baby. 6 months of sleepless nights, countless revisions, and fighting tooth and nail with upper management to get it approved. It had generated $40 million in revenue and won 3 international advertising awards. Everyone knew it was mine. Hell, my signature was literally on the original concept sketches still pinned to the creative department's wall. I smoothed my black cocktail dress and made my way to the reserved seating area near the stage. That's when I saw her, Evelyn Hart, our newly minted CEO and my ex-girlfriend, standing at the entrance like a sentinel guarding the gates of heaven. Her crimson power suit looked like it cost more than my monthly rent, and her smile could have frozen hell over. "Sam," she purred, loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "I'm afraid there's been a seating adjustment." Seating adjustment? I kept my voice steady, though my stomach was already dropping. The front section is for award recipients and senior leadership only. She gestured toward the back of the room, where the catering staff and interns usually stood. "I'm sure you understand." The murmur of conversation around us died. Heads turned. Someone actually gasped. "The Phoenix campaign is up for Campaign of the Year," I said, each word careful and measured. "My campaign." Evelyn's smile widened, predatory and satisfied. "Oh, didn't you hear?" There was a last-minute revision to the submission. Tyler Brooks led that project. Such impressive work for an intern, don't you think? Tyler Brooks, 23 years old, couldn't tell the difference between RGB and CMYK if his trust fund depended on it. He'd been Evelyn's personal assistant for 3 months, fetching her oat milk lattes and pretending to take notes in meetings. The same Tyler who was now sitting in the front row, adjusting his borrowed suit and avoiding my gaze like his life depended on it. "You're joking." But even as I said it, I saw the program on the nearby table. There it was, printed in elegant serif font. Phoenix campaign, led by Tyler Brooks, marketing intern. "Security is aware of the seating arrangements," Evelyn continued, her voice honey-sweet poison. "We wouldn't want any disruptions during the ceremony. You understand, don't you? After all, tonight is about celebrating those who truly deserve recognition." The weight of my laptop bag on my shoulder had never felt heavier. Inside was everything, every email, every draft, every time-stamped file that proved the Phoenix campaign was mine. But I also had something else, something Evelyn didn't know about. I looked around the room, at the executives pretending not to watch, at my colleagues who couldn't meet my eyes, at Tyler, shrinking into his seat, and finally, back at Evelyn, whose expression radiated the kind of vindictive satisfaction that only comes from carefully orchestrated revenge. "You know what, Evelyn?" I pulled out my phone, fingers flying across the screen. "You're absolutely right. Tonight is about recognition." Her smile faltered slightly. "What are you doing?" "Just sending an email. You should check yours, by the way." I hit send and slipped the phone back into my bag. "In about 30 seconds. "If you're trying to." 30 seconds, Evelyn." I picked up my laptop bag and straightened my shoulders. "That's all you have left." I turned and walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor in the sudden silence. Behind me, I heard the first phone buzz, then another, then dozens, like an electronic symphony building to crescendo. "What the hell?" Evelyn's voice, sharp and panicked. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I pushed through the ballroom doors just as I heard Evelyn's strangled gasp, followed by the unmistakable sound of champagne glasses hitting the floor. The security guard at the door looked confused as I passed. Leaving already? Ms. Whitmore? Just getting started, Marcus, I said. And for the first time in months, I actually meant my smile. Just getting started. 1 month before that catastrophic awards ceremony, I was exactly where Evelyn knew I'd be, hunched over my desk at 11 p.m., surrounded by empty coffee cups and the ghostly glow of 3 monitors. The October storm outside was biblical, turning Westford's streets into rivers and rattling the old building's windows like they were trying to escape. I was deep in spreadsheets, calculating ROI projections for the Phoenix campaign's next phase when the pounding started. Not the rain, this was deliberate, urgent, human. Buildings closed, I called out, not looking up. Probably another startup founder who'd forgotten their keycard. This place was full of workaholics who treated sleep like a character flaw. The pounding intensified. Jesus Christ, I muttered, saving my work and stalking to the door. Look, I don't care if you're the CEO of... The words died in my throat. A man I'd never seen before stood in the hallway, water streaming from his coat. He was holding the hand of a small boy, maybe 5 years old, who was so drenched his Spider-Man pajamas clung to his tiny frame. Samantha Whitmore? The man's voice was all business despite the circumstances. Who's asking? He thrust an envelope at me. I'm just the messenger. This explains everything. He gently nudged the boy forward. Go on, Oliver. This is your Aunt Sam. Wait, what? I don't have a... But the man was already disappearing down the hallway, his footsteps echoing against the marble. The boy, Oliver, stood there shivering, a small backpack clutched in his hands, looking up at me with eyes that were heartbreakingly familiar. Michael, I whispered. Those were my brother's eyes. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a custody agreement, temporary guardianship papers, and a note in Michael's chaotic handwriting. Sam, I know I have no right to ask this. We haven't talked in 3 years, and that's on me. But Oliver needs you now. I can't explain everything. It's not safe. The papers are legal. Please, just trust me one more time. I'll come back for him when I can. He likes dinosaurs and hates broccoli. He's scared of thunderstorms. Please. Sam. M. Are you really my aunt? Oliver's voice was small, barely audible over the storm. I looked down at this tiny, soaked human being that had just been literally delivered to my doorstep. My brother, who'd vanished after some shady business deal went south, had a son. A son he'd never told me about. And now that son was standing in my office at midnight, dripping on the corporate carpet. Yes, I guess I am. I grabbed my blazer from the chair and wrapped it around his shoulders. Are you hungry? Tired? Do you know where your dad went? He said he had to go away for a while, said you'd take care of me. His lower lip trembled. He said you were really smart and really nice and that you'd keep me safe. Smart? I'd just been blindsided by a 5-year-old delivery. Nice? I'd made 3 interns cry this month alone. Safe? I couldn't even keep my houseplants alive. Okay, buddy. Okay. I grabbed my phone and started Googling frantically. What do 5-year-olds eat? How much do they sleep? Is it illegal to bring a child to a corporate office at midnight? Rachel. I voice texted my best friend. Emergency. DEFCON 1. Bring supplies for small human. 20 minutes later, Rachel Monroe burst through the door with 2 CVS bags and the manic energy of someone who'd driven through a hurricane. Sam, what the hell? She stopped, taking in Oliver, who'd curled up on my office couch. Is that a child? Apparently, he's my nephew. Since when do you have a nephew? Since about 30 minutes ago. Rachel, God bless her, didn't ask more questions. She pulled out juice boxes, goldfish crackers, and somehow, miraculously, a dry set of kids' clothes. How did you? My sister has twins. I raid her emergency stash. She knelt down next to Oliver. Hey, little man, I'm Rachel. Want to get into some dry clothes? As she helped Oliver change, I read through the legal documents more carefully. Everything was legitimate, notarized, witnessed, filed with the state. Michael had planned this. Whatever trouble he was in, he'd made sure Oliver would be protected. Where are we going to sleep? Oliver asked, now drowning in a Pokémon t-shirt 3 sizes too big. I looked around my office, the closest thing I had to a home these days. My actual apartment was 40 minutes away, and I couldn't imagine putting this kid back in the storm. We're going to have an adventure, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. We're going to camp out here tonight, and tomorrow we'll go to my real home. How does that sound? Oliver nodded solemnly. Dad said you'd know what to do. I didn't. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But looking at this small, scared boy who'd been dropped into my disaster of a life, I made a decision. I'd figure it out. I'd have to. Yeah, buddy, I said, pulling him into an awkward hug that somehow felt exactly right. I've got you. The first week with Oliver was like being thrown into a tornado while blindfolded and wearing roller skates. I'd conquered hostile boardrooms and impossible deadlines. But a 5-year-old? He was my Everest. Day 1 started with Oliver standing next to my bed at 5 a.m. I'm hungry, and your apartment smells weird. It's called coffee and existential dread, I mumbled, then caught myself. I mean, let's get you breakfast. My refrigerator offered a sad tableau, expired yogurt, wine, and something that might have once been lettuce. Oliver peered inside with the grave disappointment only a child can muster. Dad makes pancakes. Right, pancakes. I grabbed my phone. Hey, Siri. How do you make? From scratch. Oliver added helpfully, with faces on them. 3 hours, 2 grocery runs, and 1 small kitchen fire later. We were eating severely deformed pancake creatures that Oliver generously called abstract art. He grinned through a mouthful of syrup, and something in my chest cracked open. Rachel became my lifeline, showing up daily with supplies and sanity. You bought him 17 dinosaur books, she observed, surveying my living room turned Jurassic Park. He likes dinosaurs. You bought 17. I panicked in Barnes & Noble. The real challenge was work. I couldn't take time off. The Phoenix campaign was in its critical phase. So Oliver came with me, armed with coloring books and an iPad loaded with educational games. My colleagues' reactions ranged from bewildered to charmed. Is that a child? Brad from accounting asked, as if Oliver might be a very small, casual Friday dress code violation. No, Brad. It's a tax deduction that happens to need juice boxes. Oliver, meanwhile, had opinions about everything. During a creative meeting, he looked at our mood boards and announced, "These colors are sad. You should use green. Green is happy." The client specifically requested. Tyler Brooks started. "Green is happy," Oliver repeated firmly. And I bit back a smile as Tyler shut up. The breakthrough came Thursday night. Oliver had been quiet all day, and I'd found him crying in the bathroom at work. Hey, buddy, what's wrong? Kids at the daycare said I don't have a real family. They said aunts don't count. I pulled him into my lap right there on the bathroom floor. You know what? They're wrong. Families come in all shapes. Some kids have moms and dads. Some have grandparents. Some have 2 dads or 2 moms. And some lucky kids get awesome aunts who buy too many dinosaur books. But what if Dad doesn't come back? The question I'd been dreading. Then you'll stay with me, and we'll be our own kind of family. Forever? As long as you need me. He considered this. Can we have pancakes every Sunday? Abstract art pancakes, coming up. That night, I found him asleep on the couch, clutching a photo I hadn't noticed before. Michael and a woman I didn't recognize, holding baby Oliver. I tucked a blanket around him and finally let myself admit the truth. I was terrified. Not of the responsibility, but of how quickly this little hurricane had reorganized my entire life. A week ago, my biggest concern was profit margins. Now I was Googling best elementary schools in Westford and learning the names of cartoon dogs. "You're getting soft, Whitmore," Rachel said, catching me watching Oliver color during a conference call. "Shut up," I muttered. But she was right. Oliver was changing me in ways I hadn't expected. His pure joy at simple things, pigeons, puddles, the way elevator buttons lit up, made my corporate victories seem hollow. When he laughed at my terrible jokes or reached for my hand crossing the street, it felt more significant than any campaign approval. The integration wasn't perfect. I still worked too much. Oliver ate more chicken nuggets than vegetables. We were both figuring it out as we went. But Saturday morning, when he crawled into my bed and said, "Aunt Sam, you don't smell like sad coffee anymore. You smell like home," I knew we were going to be okay. "Thanks, buddy. You smell like syrup and chaos." He giggled. "That's my superhero name, Captain Syrup Chaos." "Perfect. Now, Captain, what do you say we tackle that laundry mountain?" "Do we have to?" "Heroes do laundry, Oliver." "Dad never said that." "Your dad once wore the same shirt for 2 weeks." Oliver's eyes went wide with admiration. "Really? Don't get any ideas." As he bounced off to get dressed, I realized something crucial. I wasn't just keeping Oliver safe for Michael anymore. This weird, wonderful, exhausting new life we were building. I wanted it. I wanted him. The storm that brought Oliver to my door had passed. But it had left something unexpected in its wake. The beginning of a real family. Our family. 3 months had passed since Oliver arrived, and we'd found our rhythm. Messy, imperfect, but ours. Which is why I should have known the universe was preparing to drop another bomb. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Oliver was at his new school. Westford Elementary had accepted him mid-year after I'd charmed, begged, and maybe lightly threatened the admissions director. I was actually catching up on work when my assistant knocked. "Sam, there are some people here to see you. They say it's about Oliver." My blood turned to ice. In the conference room stood 3 people who reeked of money and malice. Marianne Hart, Evelyn's mother, looked like she'd been carved from marble and designer Botox. Beside her, Charles Denton, her second husband, had the kind of tan that screamed golf courses and tax evasion. And then there was Gregory Sloan, whose law degree probably cost more than my annual salary. "Samantha." Marianne's voice could have frozen champagne. "We need to discuss Oliver's future." "He has a future. With me." "How touching." She pulled out a document. "However, Michael signed an agreement 3 years ago. In the event of his absence, guardianship would transfer to family members capable of providing Oliver with the best opportunities." I snatched the paper. It was real, Michael's signature clear as day. But something felt off. The date was wrong. 3 years ago, Oliver would have been 2, and Michael was still with Oliver's mother then. "This is completely legal," Sloan interrupted smoothly. "Mrs. Hart is Oliver's great-aunt through his mother's side. She has legitimate claim." "His mother's side?" I'd found no information about Oliver's mother, just that single photo. Marianne's smile was predatory. "My late niece, Patricia. Such a tragedy, her passing. Cancer. You know." Michael was devastated. So devastated he signed this agreement, ensuring Oliver would be raised with the privileges his maternal family can provide. Charles leaned forward. "The boy deserves the best schools, the finest opportunities. Can you provide that on a—" He glanced at papers. "$95,000 salary? I'm doing fine. Are you?" Marianne stood, circling the room like a shark. Oliver's grandfather, Patricia's father, established a trust fund. $5 million, accessible only to Oliver's legal guardian when he turns 18. But there are conditions. The guardian must maintain a certain standard of living, private schools, proper neighborhoods, cultural enrichment. There it was. The real reason. You want the money. We want what's best for Oliver, Sloane said. The trust ensures his guardian can provide properly. Mrs. Hart has already enrolled him at Pemberton Academy. That's in Connecticut, the best boarding school in New England. Marianne's voice was silk over steel. He'll have everything. The finest education. Connections that will last a lifetime. A proper upbringing. A boarding school? He's 5. They have an excellent early childhood program. He'll come home for holidays. Of course. I thought of Oliver that morning, insisting on wearing his dinosaur shirt for the 3rd day straight, syrup on his chin, telling me about his new friend Marcus who could burp the alphabet. The idea of him in some sterile boarding school, alone, and wondering why I'd sent him away. No. I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Sloane said. We've already filed the paperwork. Given Michael's questionable background and your complete lack of parenting experience, no judge will. Get out. Excuse me? Get out. I stood, my hands shaking with rage. You want a fight? You've got one. But right now, you're trespassing in my office. Marianne laughed, actually laughed. Oh, darling. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I've destroyed careers over lunch. Your brother knew better than to cross us. Why do you think he ran? And when we're done, you won't just lose Oliver. Evelyn will make sure you lose everything. Is that a threat? It's a promise. She headed for the door, then paused. We'll give you 1 week to transfer guardianship voluntarily. After that, we'll take him anyway. And you'll wish you'd cooperated. After they left, I collapsed in my chair. Rachel found me there an hour later, staring at the forged agreement, because it had to be forged, didn't it? Sam, you look like you've seen a ghost. I explained everything. Rachel's face went through a journey from confusion to shock to murderous rage. Those bastards, using a kid as a lottery ticket? I need a lawyer, the best one in the city. Harper Quinn, Rachel said immediately. She's legendary. And she hates Gregory Sloane. He screwed her over in law school or something. Can we afford her? Can you afford not to have her? That evening, I picked Oliver up from school, watching him chatter about his day, blissfully unaware that vultures were circling, at home, while he played with his dinosaurs. I made the call. Harper Quinn. Ms. Quinn. My name is Samantha Whitmore. The Hart family is trying to take my nephew, and Gregory Sloane is representing them. There was a pause. Then, Gregory fucking Sloane, that pretentious backstabbing piece of... She caught herself. When can you meet? Anytime, anywhere. My office, tomorrow morning. Bring everything, every document, every text, every photo. If Gregory's involved, this is about money. $5 million in trust. Of course it is. Her voice turned sharp, focused. Ms. Whitmore, I'm going to ask you one question, and I need complete honesty. Are you prepared to go to war for this child? I looked at Oliver, who'd fallen asleep on the couch, still clutching his T-Rex. My chest ached with a fierce protectiveness I'd never felt before. Yes. Then we're going to destroy them. Harper Quinn's office looked like a war room had mated with a law library. Papers covered every surface, multiple computers hummed with activity. And the woman herself moved through it all like a general planning an invasion. The document is garbage, she announced after 2 hours of examination. See this notary stamp? Jennifer Reeves stopped practicing in 2009. Medical leave. This was supposedly signed in 2021. So it's fake? Fake as Marianne Hart's concern for Oliver. Harper pulled up multiple screens. But proving it isn't enough. We need to bury them. Tell me everything about Michael. I spent the next 3 hours spilling my brother's history, the failed business ventures, his relationship with Patricia, her death from cancer 2 years ago, his increasing paranoia before disappearing. He mentioned the Harts once. I remembered. Said Patricia's family was toxic, that they'd tried to control her entire life. When she chose Michael, they cut her off completely. Until they learned about the trust fund. Harper's fingers flew across her keyboard. Patricia's father, Edward Morrison, died 6 months ago. That's when the trust activated. 6 months ago. But Michael only left Oliver with me last month. Because that's when the heart started circling. Harper pulled up court records. Look, they filed for information about the trust 6 months ago. Started investigating Michael's whereabouts 5 months ago. Filed a missing persons report 3 months ago. They drove him into hiding. And now they're coming for the prize. Harper's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. But they made mistakes. Rachel, you beautiful genius. The recording app worked perfectly. Rachel grinned, pulling out her phone. She'd been wearing a wire to her casual coffee with Evelyn's assistant. Tyler's voice filled the room. Mrs. Hart doesn't actually want the kid. She just needs custody long enough to access the trust as his guardian. Something about investment opportunities. She mentioned sending him to boarding school in Switzerland, basically parking him there until he's 18. Bingo, Harper said. But we need more. Sam, I need you to do something difficult. Anything. Reach out to Michael. I know you don't know where he is, but try everything. Old emails, friends, anything. We need his testimony, even if it's written. I spent the next week in detective mode. I contacted Michael's old roommates, his former business partners, even his high school friends. Nothing. Then Oliver mentioned something casual that changed everything. Dad calls sometimes, on the computer. What computer, buddy? The one at school, Mrs. Peterson lets me use it during lunch. My heart raced. Does Dad call tomorrow? Every Wednesday. The next day, I was at Oliver's school, waiting. When the Skype call came through, I nearly cried. Michael looked exhausted, thin, but alive. Sam, Jesus, what are you? The Harts are trying to take Oliver. His face went white. No, they can't. Michael, I need you to record everything. Harper Quinn is our lawyer. Tell her what they did to you. For the next hour, Michael spilled everything. The threats when he started dating Patricia. The attempts to break them up. After Patricia's death, they tried to force him to sign over custody. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd have me arrested for Patricia's death. Said they'd make it look like I'd neglected her treatment. Sam, I didn't even know about the trust until they told me. Patricia never mentioned it. Why didn't you come to me sooner? I was ashamed and scared. They have connections everywhere, but when they got more aggressive, I knew Oliver wasn't safe. You were the only person I trusted. Harper had been recording everything. Michael, I need you to write this all down, sign it, and have it notarized wherever you are. Can you do that? Yes. Anything to keep Oliver safe. Meanwhile, Harper's investigator, a former FBI agent named Marcus, was digging into the Hart family finances. What he found was damning. They're broke, he announced, spreading financial records across Harper's desk. Charles Denton's last 3 businesses went under. Marianne's been selling jewelry and property. They're about 2 months from bankruptcy. So Oliver's trust is their lifeline, Harper said. It gets better. Marcus continued. I found 3 other custody battles over the years. All distant relatives with trust funds. All settled out of court when the families paid them off. They're professional predators. We were building our case when my phone rang. Evelyn. Sam, we need to talk. Mother's being unreasonable? Unreasonable. She's trying to steal my nephew. I know. I didn't know about her plan until yesterday. Meet me. Please. Against Harper's advice, I met Evelyn at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. She looked terrible, stress etched in every line of her face. I can make her back off, she said without preamble. In exchange for? You withdraw your complaint about the Phoenix campaign, and you resign. Quietly. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're unbelievable. Sam, you don't understand. If Mother doesn't get that money, she'll destroy us both. She has dirt on everyone, including you. What dirt? The Jefferson account. She knows you leaked their strategy to their competitor. I didn't. Then it hit me. You? You leaked it using my credentials. Evelyn's silence was confirmation enough. I have a better idea, I said, pulling out my phone and hitting record. Tell me everything about your mother's plan, every detail, or I'll destroy you all. You're recording this? Just like you recorded my presentations to steal my ideas. Now talk. For 20 minutes, Evelyn spilled everything. Her mother's schemes, the forged documents, the plan to ship Oliver overseas, even the bribes to expedite custody hearings. She's evil, Sam, but she's my mother. And Oliver's my nephew. Guess who I'm choosing? I stood to leave, then paused. The awards ceremony is next week, right? Don't worry, I'll be there. Sam, with bells on, Evelyn, with bells on. Harper reviewed everything that night, her grin growing wider with each piece of evidence. Sam, we're not just going to win. We're going to annihilate them. Good. But Harper, I want to do more than just win the custody battle. What did you have in mind? I smiled, thinking of the email I'd been composing. Complete and total destruction. The night before the awards ceremony, I sat in my apartment with 3 laptops open, Oliver asleep in his room, and Rachel pacing behind me like a caged panther. You're really going nuclear, she said, reading over my shoulder. They came for my family. They get what they deserve. The email was a masterpiece of destruction. Subject line: The truth about Brightsphere Global, corruption, theft, and child exploitation. I'd attached everything. Evelyn's recorded confession about stealing the Phoenix campaign. Email threads showing her pattern of claiming credit for others' work. Financial records Marcus had uncovered showing Charles Denton's embezzlement from his previous companies. Marianne's history of custody extortion. The forged guardianship documents with detailed forensic analysis proving the forgery. But the crown jewel was the audio file from my coffee meeting with Evelyn, where she admitted to her mother's plan to abandon Oliver in a Swiss boarding school while draining his trust fund. You're sending this to everyone? The entire board of directors, all major shareholders, every employee at Brightsphere, the Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch, Adweek, the state attorney's office, Child Protective Services, and I smiled grimly. Patricia Morrison's father's business partners who oversee the trust fund. That's thorough. Harper calls it carpet bombing with facts. I'd scheduled the email for 8:47 p.m., exactly 3 minutes into Evelyn's planned acceptance speech for my Phoenix campaign. Maximum impact, maximum humiliation. What about Oliver? Rachel asked. This will be everywhere. Harper's already filed emergency custody papers under seal. Oliver's name is redacted in everything going public. He's protected. The next evening, I stood outside the Westford Ritz in my best black dress, the same one from 3 months ago. My laptop bag felt lighter this time, no desperate hope, just cold certainty. You came, Evelyn intercepted me at the entrance, her mother flanking her like a predator. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Marianne stepped forward. I hope you've reconsidered our offer. This is your last chance to handle this quietly. Oh, I'm handling it. Security has been instructed. Evelyn started. To escort me out. Yes. You mentioned. I checked my phone. 8:44 p.m. But I won't be staying long. I walked past them into the ballroom. The same glittering crowd, the same false smiles, the same Tyler Brooks sitting in my seat. This time, though, I didn't head for the tables. I walked straight to the bar, ordered a whiskey, and waited. 8:45 p.m. Evelyn took the stage to polite applause. Thank you all for being here tonight. Brightsphere Global represents the pinnacle of creative excellence. 8:46 p.m. She was warming up, gesturing to the screen showing Phoenix campaign highlights, my work, my sleepless nights, my vision. This campaign represents everything we stand for: innovation, integrity, and collaborative success. 8:47 p.m. The first phone buzzed. then another, then dozens. From my position at the bar, I watched the wave hit. Board member Richard Conway's face went from bored to shocked to furious in 3 seconds. CFO Margaret Walsh actually gasped out loud, her phone shaking in her hand. Evelyn continued for another sentence before noticing the commotion. As I was saying, the Phoenix campaign. You stole it, someone shouted from the back. Evelyn froze. Marianne, sitting at the head table, was staring at her phone in horror. What's happening? Evelyn's microphone picked up every note of panic. Richard Conway stood up. Evelyn Hart, you're terminated immediately. Security, please escort Ms. Hart and Mrs. Hart from the premises. You can't? We can and we are. Margaret Walsh was already on her phone. Legal. Yes, we need you here immediately. The room erupted. Journalists who'd been there for puff pieces suddenly had real news. Phones came out, recording everything. Tyler Brooks tried to slip out but was blocked by security. Marianne stood up, her face volcanic. This is slander. I'll sue every last. Mrs. Hart? 2 police officers had entered. We need you to come with us. You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and attempted custody manipulation. As they cuffed her, her eyes found mine across the room. Pure hatred burned there. But underneath it, defeat. Evelyn wasn't arrested. Yet. But as security led her out, she passed by me. Check your email, I said quietly. She looked at her phone. I'd sent her one personal message, separate from the blast. You took my work. You tried to take my family. Now you have nothing. We're even. Sam. Ms. Whitmore. Richard Conway approached, looking deeply uncomfortable. On behalf of the board, I want to apologize. The Phoenix campaign was clearly yours. We'd like to discuss making this right. Restoration of credit, compensation, promotion. I'll be filing a civil suit, I said calmly. Harper Quinn will be in touch. But right now, I have a nephew to get home to. I walked out of the Westford Ritz for the last time, past the chaos, past the reporters shouting questions, past the ruins of everything Evelyn and her family had built on lies. My phone rang. Harper? The judge signed the emergency order. Oliver is officially, permanently yours. The Harts can never contact him again. What about the trust? The trust administrators saw your email. They're appointing you as guardian of the funds with full oversight to ensure it's used solely for Oliver's benefit. Congratulations, Sam. You won. I sat in my car for a moment, letting it sink in. Tomorrow, there would be lawyers and paperwork and interviews. Brightsphere would implode. The Harts would face criminal charges. My professional world would need rebuilding. But tonight, Oliver was safe, asleep in his dinosaur pajamas, dreaming whatever 5-year-olds dream about. That was all that mattered. I drove home to my family, my real family, the one that had been delivered in a thunderstorm and forged in fire. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning. It's protecting what matters most while watching your enemies destroy themselves with their own greed. The email had done its job. The war was over. We won. The courtroom was packed. 3 weeks after the awards ceremony explosion, we were finally here. The custody hearing that would determine Oliver's future once and for all. Harper had warned me it would be brutal. Cornered rats fight the hardest, she'd said. She wasn't wrong. Gregory Sloane stood across from us, somehow still representing Marianne despite her criminal charges. She'd made bail, of course, old money connections ran deep, and sat rigidly beside him in a gray suit that couldn't hide her fury. Your Honor, Sloane began, his voice oozing false concern. While the criminal allegations against my client are still being investigated, we're here solely about Oliver's welfare. Ms. Whitmore, while well-meaning, is a single woman with no parenting experience who exposed this child to a dangerous corporate environment. Judge Patricia Hendricks, a woman who looked like she'd seen every custody battle trick in the book, remained unmoved. Continue. Furthermore, Ms. Whitmore has shown vindictive behavior, destroying careers and livelihoods. Is this the environment for a young child? Harper stood. Your Honor, if we're discussing environments, let's discuss Mrs. Hart's actual plans for Oliver. She played the recording from my meeting with Evelyn. The courtroom listened to Evelyn's voice describing her mother's scheme: boarding school in Switzerland, no visits, just signatures on trust documents. Hearsay, Sloan objected. Actually, Harper smiled, producing a document. We have corroboration. Pemberton Academy in Connecticut confirms Mrs. Hart paid a non-refundable deposit for Oliver's enrollment. The Swiss school, La Rosie, confirms she inquired about their year-round residential program with minimal family contact. Marianne's composure cracked slightly. Harper continued, calling witness after witness. Oliver's teacher, Mrs. Peterson, testified about his transformation, from a scared, quiet boy to a thriving child who talked constantly about his Aunt Sam and their Sunday pancakes. Rachel testified about my dedication. The pediatrician confirmed Oliver was healthy and well cared for. Even my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, described seeing us playing in the park. Then came the surprise witness. We call Michael Whitmore. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Michael walked in, thin but determined. He'd flown in from Canada, where he'd been hiding. Mr. Whitmore, Harper began, tell us about the Hart's interest in your son. Michael's testimony was devastating. The threats after Patricia's death, the attempts to force him to sign custody papers, the private investigator who'd stalked him and Oliver. They said if I didn't give them Oliver, they'd have me charged with Patricia's death. Said they'd claim I prevented her from getting treatment. It was a lie. Patricia made her own medical choices, but they had lawyers, connections. I was terrified. Why did you choose your sister as guardian? Michael looked at me, eyes full of gratitude. Sam's the strongest person I know. When we were kids, she once faced down 3 bullies to protect me. She's brilliant, stubborn, and loves with her whole heart. I knew she'd protect Oliver no matter what. Sloane's cross-examination was vicious. You abandoned your child, Mr. Whitmore. You're a coward who dumped responsibility on your sister. I'm a father who made an impossible choice to keep my son safe from predators. Then came the moment that changed everything. Your Honor, Harper announced, we have one more piece of evidence: security footage from the Hart estate provided by a former employee. The video showed Marianne in her study with Charles, dated 2 days before they'd first contacted me. The boy is worthless himself. Marianne's voice rang clear. But that trust fund could save us. $5 million, properly invested. We get custody, ship him somewhere cheap, pocket the difference in care costs. Charles laughed on the recording. What about the aunt? Sam Whitmore, she's nothing. A career woman who won't fight for a child she never wanted. The courtroom was silent. Even Sloan looked defeated. Judge Hendricks had heard enough. Mr. Sloan, does your client have any actual concern for Oliver's welfare? Sloan stood, straightened his tie, and did something unexpected. Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw from this case. Denied. Answer the question. No. Your Honor, she does not. Marianne exploded. You incompetent. Mrs. Hart, control yourself or be removed. The judge warned. Judge Hendricks turned to me. Ms. Whitmore, please stand. I stood. Harper's hand on my shoulder. I've reviewed everything. The forensic evidence proves the guardianship document was forged. The recordings and testimony establish the Hart's intentions were purely financial. Meanwhile, you've provided a stable, loving home for Oliver, despite having no warning or preparation. She paused, consulting her notes. I've seen many custody cases, but rarely one so clear-cut. The petition by Mrs. Hart is denied completely and permanently. Full legal custody is awarded to Samantha Whitmore. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm issuing a permanent restraining order. The Harts are forbidden from any contact with Oliver or Ms. Whitmore. Any violation will result in immediate imprisonment. This is outrageous, Marianne shrieked. That money belongs to our family. The trust belongs to Oliver, the judge corrected coldly. And Ms. Whitmore will oversee it until his majority. Mrs. Hart, you're fortunate you're not being charged with attempted kidnapping. Court dismissed. As the gavel fell, Marianne lunged toward me, but bailiffs restrained her. You destroyed everything, my company, my reputation. You destroyed yourself, I said quietly. I just made sure everyone knew about it. As they dragged her away, still screaming, I felt a small hand slip into mine. Oliver stood there with Michael, who'd been watching him in a side room. Did we win, Aunt Sam? I knelt down to his level. Yeah, buddy. We won. So I get to stay with you? Forever and always. Michael hugged us both. Sam, I can never thank you enough. I want to be in Oliver's life, but I know I need to earn that right back. We'll figure it out, I said. Family's complicated. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Harper and Rachel formed a protective barrier. As we pushed through, Oliver looked up at me. Aunt Sam, are those people who were mean to us going away? Yes, Oliver. They can't hurt us anymore. Good. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? I laughed, lifting him onto my shoulders. Ice cream for dinner? For breakfast, too? Don't push it, kid. As we walked away from the courthouse, Oliver chattering about flavors, Michael beside us tentatively rebuilding bridges, and Rachel and Harper planning a celebration dinner. I realized something. I'd walked into that building fighting for Oliver. I walked out with something I'd never expected, a family. 6 months later, life had settled into something I never could have imagined that night in the storm. Oliver and I had moved to a bigger apartment, nothing fancy, but it had a real bedroom for him and a small backyard where we planted a vegetable garden that was currently murdering everything except the tomatoes. Brightsphere Global had imploded spectacularly. The board's investigation revealed years of systematic theft and fraud. Evelyn was facing criminal charges along with her mother. Tyler Brooks had become a state witness in exchange for immunity, though his reputation in the industry was destroyed. Last I heard, he was working at his father's accounting firm in Idaho. As for me, I'd started my own creative consultancy with Rachel as my partner. The Phoenix campaign controversy had actually become great publicity. Everyone wanted to work with the woman who'd brought down corruption with a single email. We were selective about clients, though. These days, I had different priorities. Aunt Sam, Dad, look what I made. Oliver ran into the living room where Michael and I were reviewing legal documents. Michael had been back for 3 months now, slowly rebuilding his relationship with Oliver and helping us navigate the trust fund paperwork. Oliver held up a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a lopsided house. It's for school. We had to draw our family. That's beautiful, buddy, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. Mrs. Peterson says I can show it at the parent showcase next week. You'll both come, right? Wouldn't miss it for the world, I promised. Michael had gotten a job at a local tech startup, nothing fancy, but stable. He'd joined therapy, both individual and family counseling with Oliver. The court had approved graduated custody. He had Oliver weekends now, building toward shared custody. We were healing, slowly but surely. My phone buzzed. Another interview request about the case. I declined it. The story had been told enough times. These days, I was more interested in living our life than reliving our battle. Sam, Michael said after Oliver ran off to play, I never properly thanked you, not just for taking Oliver, but for fighting for him, for being the parent I couldn't be when he needed it most. You were protecting him the only way you knew how. Maybe, but you protected him better. You gave him stability, love, a real home. You gave up your entire life. I didn't give up anything, I interrupted. I gained everything. It was true. The corporate success I'd fought so hard for seemed meaningless now compared to Oliver's laugh, his hand in mine, the way he still insisted on abstract pancakes every Sunday. Harper stopped by that evening with final paperwork. The criminal cases are progressing. Marianne's looking at serious time for fraud and forgery. Charles flipped on her for a reduced sentence. And Evelyn. She smiled grimly. She's been disbarred from every major company in the industry. Last update from my contacts. She's living with a cousin in Florida, working at a real estate office. I don't even care anymore, I said honestly. They're nothing to us now. Good. That's healthy. Harper handed me an envelope. One more thing. The trust administrators were impressed with your management plan. Oliver's college fund is secure, plus enough for private school if you choose, and a comfortable life. You did good. Sam. After Harper left, I found Oliver in his room, playing with the dinosaur collection that had somehow tripled since he'd moved in. He looked up at me with those eyes, still Michael's, but now with a confidence that was all his own. Aunt Sam, Marcus at school says I'm lucky because I have two people who love me, instead of just one or two like most kids. Marcus sounds smart. He is. His mom makes better cookies than you, though. Harsh, but fair. Oliver climbed into my lap, something he still did when he had big thoughts. I love you, Aunt Sam. Thank you for keeping me. I hugged him tight, remembering that terrified, soaked little boy from 9 months ago. I love you too, Oliver. More than all the dinosaurs in the world. Even the T-Rex? Even the T-Rex. That night, after Oliver was asleep, I stood in his doorway, watching him breathe. The custody papers were signed and filed. The trust was secure. The hearts were facing justice. My career had pivoted, but thrived. Michael was back and healing. But none of that was the real victory. The real victory was this: a little boy who felt safe enough to sleep soundly, who laughed freely, who drew pictures of his family with absolute certainty that we'd always be there. I'd started this fight thinking I was saving Oliver. Turned out, he'd saved me too. From a life where success was measured in campaigns and awards, to one where it was measured in bedtime stories and Sunday pancakes. Rachel had asked me once if I regretted that night I sent the email that destroyed everything. Regret it? That email didn't destroy everything. It gave me everything that actually mattered. Di Sam, bai gyo chung ta tuk su la gia jin fai kong? Oliver had asked at the courthouse. Yes, Oliver. We really are a family. And no corporate award, no amount of money, no professional success could ever compare to that simple, perfect truth. The storm that brought him to my door had passed. In its wake, it left something infinitely more valuable than any career achievement. It left us home. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Did you see the revenge coming? What would you have done in my situation? Your comments mean everything, and who knows, your story might inspire the next one. Until next time, remember, family isn't always blood, but it's always worth fighting for.